They landed in America believing the country had confused convenience with excess. A restaurant serving breakfast after midnight. Excessive. A gas station large enough to contain a supermarket, barbecue counter, bakery, clothing store, and enough restrooms for an entire football stadium. Completely unnecessary. A pharmacy selling groceries. A grocery store selling televisions. A roadside stop selling fresh brisket, camping equipment, toys, coffee, household decorations, and enough snacks to survive a cross-country emergency. Why would anyone need all of that in one place? European World Cup fans laughed at the enormous cups, endless parking lots, drive-through windows, all-day breakfast menus, self-service ice machines, and businesses still serving people long after an ordinary evening should have ended. To them, it looked ridiculous. Americans had built an entire society around one frightening possibility. What if someone needed something at 2 o'clock in the morning? Then the visitors began traveling between American cities. Their match ended late. Their flight was delayed. Their hotel restaurant had closed. They still had hundreds of miles to drive. One supporter needed medicine. Another needed a phone charger. Someone was hungry. Someone needed coffee. Someone had spilled a drink over the only clean shirt he had packed. And suddenly, the glowing store beside the highway did not look excessive. It looked like civilization. The fans had arrived asking why America needed so many late-night options. Within days, they were asking a very different question. Why did the rest of the world make ordinary life so difficult after dark? The transformation did not happen inside a famous monument. It happened beneath fluorescent lights, at diner counters, inside giant supermarkets, beside fuel pumps, in 24-hour restaurants filled with truck drivers, hospital workers, students, families, exhausted travelers, and football supporters still wearing their national colors long after the final whistle. European visitors had come to America expecting the World Cup. America introduced them to something else, a country that refuses to admit the day is over. And once they experienced that convenience, going home would never feel quite the same. Before the tournament, many visitors already knew the stereotypes. America was too large, too commercial, too dependent on cars, too obsessed with speed, too willing to replace meaningful traditions with instant service. European cities, by comparison, seemed more human. People walked, they used trains, they sat inside cafes. They accepted that some businesses closed because workers also had lives. America, critics argued, had turned impatience into an economic system. Everything needed to be faster, larger, closer, available immediately. The criticism was not completely wrong. American convenience carries costs. It requires workers to cover difficult hours. It encourages driving. It creates enormous commercial spaces. It can replace local businesses with national chains. And it sometimes teaches people to expect instant service, regardless of what that service demands from another human being. But the fans had judged the system before they understood why it existed. America is not a compact country. Its cities are separated by enormous distances. Many workers follow schedules that do not fit neatly between 9 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. Nurses finish shifts when restaurants are closing. Drivers cross states overnight. Airport employees begin working before sunrise. Parents discover that a child has a fever after the pharmacy would normally be closed. Travelers arrive hungry after delays nobody planned. Convenience did not develop only because Americans were impatient. It developed because millions of people lived lives that did not stop according to one traditional timetable. The World Cup visitors discovered this quickly. A match might end late in the evening, but leaving the stadium could take much longer. Crowds moved slowly. Transportation required patience. Some supporters still had to reach hotels far from the venue. Others were beginning another stage of a road trip. By the time they were free, the organized part of the day had ended. The hunger had not. That was when they noticed the lights. The first place many visitors encountered this strange after-midnight America was Waffle House. From the outside, it did not appear impressive. No luxury entrance. No formal host. No carefully arranged European cafe atmosphere. Just a bright yellow sign glowing beside a road, promising that breakfast had not abandoned them. Inside, the scene felt like a documentary nobody had staged. The kitchen was open to view. Coffee moved continuously. Orders were called across the room. Truck drivers sat beside students. Night shift workers ate beside tourists. A family might enter while football supporters were still discussing a missed penalty. There was no need to dress correctly. No need to explain why dinner had become breakfast. No one asked whether pancakes were appropriate at that hour. The restaurant had already accepted that time had lost control of the situation. Waffle House operates roughly 2,000 restaurants, primarily across the American South, and visiting World Cup fans became fascinated by the chain's all-day breakfast culture. International supporters posted viral reactions to its food, atmosphere, staff, and the simple discovery that a hot meal remained available when much of the surrounding city appeared finished for the night. At first, the Europeans treated it like a joke. Breakfast after midnight? Hash browns prepared through a vocabulary requiring its own translation guide? Coffee refilled before the customer had decided whether another cup was wise? It looked like a television set, created to exaggerate American life. Then the food arrived. The laughter became quieter. Not because every visitor believed it was the greatest meal ever created. Some loved it, some did not, but almost everyone understood its purpose. Waffle House was not trying to become a special occasion. It was there precisely because this was not a special occasion. It was there for the inconvenient hour, the delayed journey, the exhausted worker, the person who had nowhere else to go. That was the first crack in the criticism. Convenience could look culturally shallow during the day. At 1 in the morning, it began to look compassionate. A visitor does not always need elegance. Sometimes he needs somewhere bright, warm, and open. Somewhere he can sit. Somewhere the bathroom is available. Somewhere another human being will ask what he wants to eat, rather than why he has arrived so late. That small reassurance changed the emotional meaning of the entire system. The visitors had assumed 24-hour service existed because Americans demanded constant consumption. Now they saw that it also existed because life does not always respect opening hours. But Waffle House was only the beginning. The next shock waited beside the highway. Its name was Buc-ee's. Calling Buc-ee's a gas station is technically possible. It is also deeply misleading. A normal gas station offers fuel, drinks, snacks, and a restroom whose condition may encourage visitors to reconsider every decision that brought them there. Buc-ee's operates on a different philosophy. Why provide a few fuel pumps when there can be dozens? Why offer one snack aisle when a traveler could enter an entire food universe? Why sell a simple sandwich when brisket can be prepared in front of a crowd? Why allow a person to leave with only gasoline when that person could also purchase jerky, fudge, clothing, souvenirs, home decorations, outdoor equipment, toys, coffee, and a beaver-shaped object he never intended to own? World Cup visitors made Buc-ee's one of the most discussed stops of their American road trips. A German fans excited visits to Buc-ee's, Waffle House, Taco Bell, and other American businesses went viral, while the Transportation Security Administration eventually published playful guidance explaining which Buc-ee's foods tourists could carry onto flights. Imagine the European supporter's first entrance. He sees the building from the highway and assumes it is a service station. Then he sees the parking lot. The first doubt appears. He walks through the doors. The doubt becomes confusion. People are buying hot food. Someone is preparing brisket. Families are choosing souvenirs. Travelers are examining walls of snacks. Employees are maintaining the restrooms with the seriousness of a luxury hotel. The visitor turns toward his friend with the expression of someone who has just discovered that the gas station has developed its own government. This is all for people stopping on the road? Yes. How long are they supposed to stop? That depends on how strong they are. A person can enter Buc-ee's intending to buy water and return 40 minutes later holding food, a shirt, a bag of snacks, and several items whose purpose will become clear only after reaching home. This was American convenience transformed into entertainment. The visitors laughed. Then they started filming. Then they began shopping. Then they planned the next stop. The strange roadside store became part of the journey rather than an interruption to it. And that revealed another difference. In much of the American travel system, the road itself is treated as an experience. The destination matters. But so do the stops. The diner, the truck stop, the convenience store. The regional chain people insist cannot be missed. The roadside attraction advertised on signs for 50 miles before it appears. A European train journey may allow the passenger to relax while someone else handles movement. The American road trip asks the traveler to participate. He chooses the route, the fuel, the food, the stop. The strange object purchased because everyone was tired and it seemed funny at the time. The system can be exhausting. It can also create stories. By the third city, the fans were no longer asking only where the next match would take place. They were asking what they could visit along the way. Which regional restaurant? Which giant supermarket? Which diner? Which gas station had somehow become famous? A journey that had seemed inconvenient began producing a strange sense of freedom. Leave when you want. Stop when you want. Eat breakfast at night. Buy medicine before sunrise. Find coffee on an empty highway. Change the plan without fearing that every useful door will already be locked. The World Cup brought one particularly enthusiastic German supporter, named Freddie, widespread attention as he documented a cross-country journey through American restaurants, roadside attractions, and cities. His enthusiasm for businesses such as Waffle House and Buc-ee's became part of a broader online wave in which international visitors discovered ordinary American life beyond the stadiums. So, the word ordinary is important. Famous attractions are designed to impress visitors. Ordinary systems reveal how residents actually live. Anyone can stand before a skyline and feel amazed. But the supermarket aisle tells a different story. The drive-through pharmacy, the giant cup of ice. The store carrying food, clothes, electronics, medicine, and household supplies. The restaurant where the customer can order breakfast at night. These were not created primarily for tourists. They existed before the World Cup arrived. The fans were not watching America perform. They were entering America's daily operating system. And that operating system had been designed around one promise. You should be able to continue. Hungry? Continue. Low on fuel? Continue. Phone dead? Continue. Headache? Continue. Clothes damaged? Continue. Plans changed? Continue. The system might not solve the important problems of life, but it removed hundreds of small obstacles. Those obstacles become noticeable only when they disappear. At home, the visitors may have accepted that the store was closed, that food service had ended, that the pharmacy would reopen tomorrow, that a request needed to wait. These limits can create healthier rhythms. They protect workers. They encourage planning. They preserve a clearer division between public commerce and private life. But limits feel very different when you are far from home. A tourist has less knowledge, fewer supplies, no familiar kitchen, no local family to call. A small problem can quickly become a stressful one. That was when American availability felt almost luxurious. Not luxury through marble walls or expensive service. Luxury through certainty. Somewhere is open. Something can be found. The night is not in control. Then came the supermarkets. The visitors entered to buy a few basic items. They discovered enough choices to make every decision feel like an examination. An entire aisle of cereal, several forms of the same milk, frozen foods from multiple cuisines, a bakery, a deli, a pharmacy, prepared meals, household supplies, seasonal decorations, phone accessories, clothing, sometimes furniture. The European supporter stood in the middle of it all, wondering why buying toothpaste required walking the distance of a small airport terminal. Again, the first reaction was mockery. Why does anyone need this many options? How many types of peanut butter can one society reasonably defend? Why are the shopping carts large enough to transport luggage? Why is the store open so late? Then the group separated. One fan bought medicine. Another found a charger. Someone replaced a forgotten toothbrush. Someone purchased food for the hotel. Another discovered that the supermarket contained an entire hot food counter. The place they had called absurd solved 6 unrelated problems in one visit. The laughter remained, but it was now mixed with respect. Convenience is persuasive because it does not need to win an argument. It waits until you need something. Then it quietly proves its value. American retail can feel overwhelming, wasteful, and visually chaotic. It can also save a tired traveler from visiting 5 separate businesses. The World Cup fans began understanding the philosophy. One stop, one parking space, one payment, one problem after another removed. And when the journey continued, another form of convenience appeared: the drive-through. European visitors often mocked American drive-through culture because it seemed to represent extreme car dependence. Food without leaving the vehicle, coffee without entering the building, medicine collected through a window. In some places, banking, groceries, and other services could also be accessed from a car. Was walking really so difficult? The criticism again had merit. American communities frequently require vehicles for journeys that would be completed on foot or by transit elsewhere. This can isolate people, increase costs, and create environments dominated by roads and parking. But the supporters were experiencing the system during a road trip. They had luggage. They were tired. The weather was hot. The group included several people who could not agree on anything. Leaving the car, finding parking, entering another building, and returning with everyone still present had become an operation. The drive-through suddenly felt less like laziness and more like mercy. Coffee appeared. Food appeared. The road continued. The visitors were discovering a recurring American pattern. A system may look unnecessary when observed from outside. Its value becomes clearer inside the circumstances that produced it. The giant cup makes sense during a long summer drive. The roadside store makes sense across enormous distances. The late-night restaurant makes sense after a stadium empties. The drive-through makes sense when the car has become a temporary home. The takeaway box makes sense when the hotel room has a refrigerator. The 24-hour pharmacy makes sense when illness refuses to check the clock. This did not mean every American convenience was wise. Some were solutions to problems created by other American systems. Car dependence created the need for drive-through services. Long working hours increased demand for late-night food. Urban sprawl made enormous stores more practical. Weak public transportation in many areas forced visitors onto highways. Convenience often treated the symptom rather than the cause. The fans could appreciate the cure while still questioning the illness. That balance is what made their changing opinion credible. They were not declaring America perfect. They were admitting that it was more intelligent in certain ways than they had expected, and sometimes more human. The deepest transformation came after midnight. During the day, convenience is about speed. At night, it becomes about safety. A brightly lit store offers more than products. It offers people, cameras, restrooms, directions, a place to stop thinking for a moment. A tired visitor walking into a late-night business may feel the tension leave his shoulders simply because he is no longer alone. The workers behind the counter may never know what the place represents to that traveler. For them, it is another shift. For him, it is proof that the journey has not become impossible. That was the America the visitors had not seen in promotional videos. Not the giant stadium, not the flag, not the skyline. The light beside an empty road, the worker pouring coffee after midnight, the cashier helping someone find medicine, the waitress asking which country's jersey a fan was wearing, the stranger recommending a safer route. The practical and the emotional blending inside an ordinary transaction. International visitors reported that encounters with drivers, hotel workers, restaurant employees, and ordinary residents frequently contradicted their expectations of a cold or hostile America. Many left with more nuanced impressions shaped by first-hand hospitality rather than distant political coverage. Convenience alone did not create that warmth, people did. A store can remain open and still feel unfriendly. A restaurant can serve food without providing comfort. The visitors remembered the places because of what happened inside them. The server who explained the menu. The employee who laughed with them rather than at them. The local customer who recommended another stop. The hotel receptionist who helped when transportation failed. The American habit of turning practical interactions into conversations surprised people accustomed to more private service. A purchase could become a story. A question could become a recommendation. A late-night meal could become an introduction to the town. This was the hidden social function of 24-hour America. When formal spaces closed, informal communities appeared. Night workers recognized one another. Travelers exchanged information. Regular customers spoke with employees. Strangers asked about football shirts. The diner became a temporary living room for people whose schedules had placed them outside ordinary life. The fans entered searching for food. They discovered another side of the country, an America that works while others sleep. Nurses, cleaners, drivers, cooks, security employees, airport workers, emergency staff, warehouse teams, hotel employees. People whose labor makes daytime convenience possible. The visitor's romantic view needed to include them. A 24-hour system does not operate magically. Someone covers the night shift. Someone cleans the restroom. Someone prepares the food. Someone handles the customer who becomes less reasonable as the hour becomes later. Convenience for one person can mean inconvenience for another. That is the moral tension beneath the glowing sign. Should everything remain open merely because customers enjoy availability? Should workers carry the cost of a society that refuses to wait? Could technology, better schedules, and higher compensation make night service fairer? The World Cup fans did not solve those questions, but a mature understanding required noticing them. American convenience deserved admiration when it supported people with unusual needs. It deserved criticism when it treated workers as invisible machinery. Both truths belonged in the same story. The visitors were not falling in love with endless consumption. They were falling in love with reliability. There is a difference. Reliability means the system is there when plans collapse. The plane is late. The child is sick. The match goes into extra time. The road is longer than expected. The phone battery dies. The hotel cannot serve food. The weather changes. A traveler does not need every store to remain open every night. He only needs one solution when the problem becomes real. America specialized in making that solution visible. This was why returning home created an unexpected emotional reaction. The European fans did not suddenly hate their own countries. They missed walkable streets, reliable trains, neighborhood cafes, protected personal time, smaller stores, quieter public spaces, the ability to live without driving everywhere. American convenience had not defeated European life. It had exposed what each system did well. Europe often made everyday life pleasant when plans worked. America could make everyday life survivable when plans failed. Europe offered rhythm. America offered flexibility. Europe told the customer to return tomorrow. America asked what could be done tonight. Neither philosophy was always correct. But after experiencing both, the visitor had a new standard. Why could cities not protect workers while still providing carefully distributed late-night services? Why could public transportation not coexist with reliable roadside facilities? Why could small local businesses remain important while essential medicine and food stayed accessible after normal hours? Why did convenience need to mean soullessness? Why did tradition need to mean inconvenience? Travel had turned assumptions into questions. That was the real transformation. The fans arrived laughing because the American system looked ridiculous from a distance. They left borrowing ideas. All-day breakfast. Reliable public restrooms. Late-night food. Easy customization. Prepared supermarket meals. More accessible ice and water. Roadside stops that felt safe and clean. The possibility of solving several needs in one place. They did not want every giant store. They did not want every parking lot. They did not want to rebuild Europe as a copy of Texas. They wanted selected conveniences without the entire system that produced them. That is how cultures learn from one another. Not by surrendering. By stealing intelligently. Take the useful idea. Leave the unnecessary excess. Improve it. Adapt it. Make it local. The visitors had accused America of having no restraint. America quietly revealed that restraint is not always a virtue. Sometimes waiting is elegant. Sometimes it is simply inconvenient. Sometimes closing protects community life. Sometimes it leaves a vulnerable person without help. Sometimes planning ahead is responsible. Sometimes life gives no warning. The American system had been designed for that final possibility. What if something goes wrong? The European system often encouraged the person to prepare. The American system promised that preparation was not the only protection. Somewhere, something would still be open. That promise was not always fulfilled. Many American towns also have limited services. Not every restaurant operates all night. Not every pharmacy is open 24 hours. Pandemic-era changes and labor pressures caused many businesses to reduce operating hours. The phrase, "America never closes," is an impression, not a literal description. But compared with what many travelers expected, enough doors remained open to change their experience. The symbolism mattered more than the exact number. The light was there. The fans could continue, and by the final days of the journey, their language had completely changed. At first, "Why does America need this?" Later, "Is there one near the hotel?" At first, "This store is absurd." Later, "We should stop there before leaving." At first, "Who eats breakfast at midnight?" Later, "Are we going back tonight?" At first, "A gas station does not need to be this large." Later, "Do you think the airport will allow these snacks?" The TSA's playful World Cup guidance about taking Buc-ee's foods through airport security became the perfect ending to the story. Tourists had entered these roadside businesses as curious skeptics and were now trying to carry pieces of the experience home. America had not persuaded them through a lecture. It had waited until they became hungry, tired, lost, delayed, or simply curious. Then it opened the door. That was the larger truth behind American convenience. Its greatest achievement was not speed. It was reducing uncertainty. The knowledge that another meal was possible, another cup of coffee, another charger, another route, another solution. A traveler could make a mistake and still recover. He could change the plan. He could continue beyond the hour he had originally imagined. That freedom was addictive, not because human beings want to shop every minute of the day, because they want to know that one mistake will not end the journey. The Europeans returned home with admiration and criticism in equal measure. They still questioned the giant parking lots, the constant consumption, the dependence on cars, the environmental waste, the labor required to keep everything functioning. But they could no longer call the entire system pointless. They had used it, they had depended on it, and in several exhausted moments, they had been grateful for it. The same convenience they mocked had protected their World Cup experience from the unpredictable reality of travel. It had fed them after matches. supplied them during road trips, entertained them between cities, introduced them to ordinary Americans, and given them stories that had nothing to do with the score. They came to America for football. They left discussing diners, gas stations, supermarkets, and a giant beaver mascot. That may sound ridiculous, but perhaps that is what made the experience so powerful. America's famous attractions confirmed what visitors already knew. Its ordinary conveniences revealed what they had misunderstood. The country was not awake all night simply because it could not stop consuming. Part of it remained awake because someone, somewhere, still needed help continuing. The fans had laughed at that promise. Then they needed it. Then they loved it. And when they returned home to a darkened street, an empty refrigerator, or a shop that would not reopen until morning, the old American question entered their minds. Why is nothing open? That was when they finally understood. The convenience had not made America perfect. It had made inconvenience feel optional. And once a person experiences that freedom, it is remarkably difficult to forget. Which American convenience would you miss most? All-day breakfast, giant roadside stores, late-night supermarkets, drive-through service, or knowing that somewhere is still open? Share your answer in the comments. Like this video if it changed how you see everyday American life, and send it to someone who has always called American convenience excessive. Subscribe to Modern World Insights. Because in the next documentary, we will reveal the American road trip tradition European visitors laughed at, until the open highway became the greatest part of their journey. This documentary presents cultural commentary based on reported visitor experiences during the 2026 World Cup. Business hours and individual experiences vary across cities, states, and communities.